Here we are, 15 games into the 2024-2025 NBA season, and the Orlando Magic currently have a record of 9-6. They've won 6 out of their last 10 ball games, but they are currently on a 6-game winning streak, and this is good enough to have them at third place in the Eastern Conference, only behind the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Orlando Magic being on this 6-game winning streak is so pivotal and also so impressive at the same time, because we all know right now this team is going through some adversity, and you want your team to go through some type of adversity throughout an NBA season because it shows you what your team is made of, what is the pedigree of our team. And I think so far during this stretch, the Orlando Magic, they're showing us that their team is made out of something very special. When we look at this adversity that they're going through right now, and 9 times out of 10, when we look at NBA teams and they go through some turmoil and they go through some adversity, 99% of the time it's internal conflict, whether it be two players not getting along or a player and the coach not getting along, whether it's injuries. Most of the time it's internal conflict, and in the case for the Orlando Magic, they are dealing with a tough injury bug. They're dealing with a tough injury bug right now. They lose Paolo Banchero at the very beginning of the season after he had some monstrous games to start the year off. One of those games even getting them a 50-piece and getting a crazy come from behind victory. And then they're also without Wendell Carter. And for the Orlando Magic, these are two pivotal basketball players for what they want to do offensively, but also on the defensive side of the ball as well. But more so on the offensive side of the ball, Paolo Banchero and Wendell Carter Jr., they are two of the Orlando Magic's best offensive player. And we know right now the Orlando Magic, they're not the strongest offensive team in the NBA. So for them to lose Paolo Banchero, who's really their offensive engine, and then also Wendell Carter, a guy that can give you 12 to 15, sometimes even 20 points, that is a huge loss. So, and it looks like this was going to be very troublesome for the Orlando Magic, because when they lost Paolo Banchero, they got a very tough schedule, some very hard games that followed. I believe he got injured in the game against the Chicago Bulls, and then after that, they had to face the Cleveland Cavaliers, they had to face the Dallas Mavericks. I believe they also played the Oklahoma City Thunder. So a lot of tough competition right after you lose your best offensive player, and then also losing Wendell Carter Jr., and then having to face those teams. That's a short amount of time to have to revamp your whole offensive style after losing 2 important pieces. So I think getting that level of competition was tough on them as they went on a 5-game losing streak, counting that game that Paolo Banchero went down. They went on a 5-game losing streak, but then we seen this team, and this is why I said the Orlando Magic, they are showing us that they are made out of something special, because to lose 5 straight games and then follow it up with a 6-game winning streak, now that is something spectacular, and that is something that can build on, and that is something that sends confidence throughout the entire organization. It sends confidence to the players, it sends confidence to the coaching staff, to the front office, and then all the way up to the fans in the stands, because what the Orlando Magic are doing right now is truly inspirational, and I think it's going to make them so much better in the long run. And we look at them on this 6-game winning streak, and we look at how they're doing it, and there's a few different things right now that the Orlando Magic are banking off of, but nothing is bigger than what they're doing on the defensive side of the ball. We look at them on this 6-game winning streak. They have held each of their opponents to under 100 points, which is so ridiculous in today's NBA, because we know teams are getting so many possessions, they're shooting so many threes, it seems like they're shooting so many more free throws, and it's a very heavy offensive style game in today's NBA. So to be able to do that, play 6 straight teams and hold them under 100 points, I think it speaks volumes to how great these guys are defensively, and they rank second in the league. In defensive rating, and we all know last season that they were going back and forth with the Minnesota Timberwolves for the best defense in the NBA. So this is something that's continued on from the Orlando Magic, and this is why it's so important to install identity into your team, especially when you're rebuilding, because that's what the Orlando Magic have to bank off of. When all else is going wrong, they're going to defend, they're going to rebound, they're going to cause takeaways, and they're going to make it very hard for you to score in the half court. So we look at what these guys are able to do defensively. They have some outstanding individual defenders. Right now, probably the best defender on the team individually is Jalen Suggs, if I'm not mistaken. I know he went to an All-NBA team last year, and I believe he was on the second team. I could be wrong, but I'm almost 100% sure he was second team All-Defense. But he is a spectacular defender. He's a great locker room guy. He's a great player to listen to after the game when he's getting interviewed. He always has something positive to say about himself and about his teammates and the coaching staff. But he is an outstanding point of attack defender. He can guard the opposing team's best playmaker or the opposing team's best perimeter scorer. He's very tenacious. He's very athletic. He has great timing, and he's a dog on the defensive side of the ball. And then what the Orlando Magic have went out and done in the offseason, they went out and got another dog on the defensive side of the ball, Caldwell-Pope, another player who has made his name in the NBA by being a guy that does two things really well: knock down the three-point shot and get after it on the defensive side of the ball. And Caldwell-Pope, he's that same type of defender as Jalen Suggs. They both play the guard position, so they're usually guarding the opposing team's best perimeter scorers or their best perimeter players, the guys that are igniting the offense. So now the Orlando Magic, they have two guys that can really put pressure on the ball and make it really hard for teams to get into their half-court offense. And then to what they have behind their point of attack defenders, what they have in their front court, they have tall, athletic, mobile big men. I've been saying this for quite a long time now, since they've acquired Paolo Banchero, since they've acquired Franz Wagner, Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac. The Orlando Magic has the most unique front court in all of the NBA. All of these guys are 6'10" and up, but they can do so many different things on the basketball court. But when you have all that length out there on the court, it takes up a lot of space, and it makes it very hard to pass the ball, make it hard to drive the basketball. So the Orlando Magic, it makes a lot of sense on why their defense is so smothering and why it's so hard to score on this team. And for me personally, this has been the biggest reason the Orlando Magic have been able to go on this 6-game winning streak, spring back up to third place in the Eastern Conference, and keep their season afloat while their best player, Paolo Banchero, heals from his oblique injury. So they've been really tenacious on the defensive side of the ball. And another thing I want to look at that's been working really great for the Orlando Magic, I want to go back to that adversity that we talked about earlier and them losing their best player on the team, Paolo Banchero. And I think when this happens, this is a really good situation for NBA teams to evaluate how good is our number 2 option. Is this guy really good enough to be the number 2 option on this team? Because you want your number 2 option for when times like this, when this does happen, you want your second best player to be able to hold down the fort until that other player gets healed back up and comes back onto the court. And in that case, for the Orlando Magic, I think we can all come to an agreement that the second best player on this team is Franz Wagner. And when we talked about what and we apply him to what we just said, I think Franz Wagner has been doing a great job of holding down the fort for Paolo Banchero and for the Orlando Magic and his teammates. Like we said in the intro, the Orlando Magic, they currently have a record of 9-6, 6-game winning streak, and they're sitting at third place in the Eastern Conference, and they've been without Paolo Banchero for a majority of the season. So I think right now, if we were to evaluate Franz Wagner in that role that we just talked about, he's doing a fantastic job, and I'm not the only person that thinks so. The NBA thinks so as well, as Franz is coming off a very dominant NBA week. He won Eastern Conference Player of the Week. The player that won it in the Western Conference was De'Aaron Fox, but we look at Franz Wagner numbers from last week. In 3 games, he averaged 30 points. He averaged 7 rebounds to go along with 5 assists. So he's really taking on that role of becoming that new offensive engine for the Orlando Magic, because we know before Paolo Banchero, so much runs through him and so much offense counts on him. So now Franz Wagner, he stepped up as that number one option, and he's been doing a really great job. And on the season, he's averaging 23 points per game, shooting 47% from the field, and that three-point shot is starting to fall a lot more. And we look at Franz Wagner, he really is a special NBA player. I'm really fascinated with his game, because when you watch Franz Wagner play, and it's really hard to tell how big these players are, especially when you're watching on TV, but when you watch Franz Wagner play, you can't tell that he's 6'10" tall, because that's how skilled and that's how great his offensive bag is. He plays like a wing, like a guard. He can handle the basketball, he can shoot the mid-range, he can shoot the three, and he's probably, if we're being honest, probably one of the best drivers of the basketball in all of the NBA, getting downhill, and then all the different ways that he can finish around the rim. It is truly special to watch. Left hand, right hand, acrobatic finishes, finishing through contact. I think that's where he's really gifted at, his finishing around the rim. You factor that skillfulness in with his size, he is a problem, and as we see, he is starting to trend in the right direction. And this is also great for the Orlando Magic. Actually, I say this point for the next thing I want to talk for after the next thing we're about to talk about. And then also what the Orlando Magic have going for them is that they just have some really great role players on this basketball team. They have a collection of guys that can defend at a really high level. When we look at Jalen Suggs and we look at Jonathan Isaac, we look at Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, we can't count out I think his name is Goga Batadze, who's one of the best rim protectors in the NBA last year when he got his opportunity when the Orlando Magic were dealing with front court injuries. And he's still doing a decent job protecting the rim this season. They have Mo Wagner, Franz Wagner's older brothers. They just have a great collection of role players that can get after on the defensive side of the ball, and also cause them to be a little bit predictable on the offensive side of the ball, because you don't know which one of these role players can get it going each and every night. And also the Orlando Magic, right now they're struggling offensively. Statistically, they rank towards the bottom in offensive rating and points per game, but they're defending at an elite level, holding teams under 100 points per game, so it's really canceling out. But they have these role players that can really take over I wouldn't say take over a ball game, but they have a bunch of role players that can get you 10, 15, 20 points on any given night. And also another guy that I'm becoming a huge fan of is Anthony Black, and he's in a situation where he went to a team where he's the type of player you would like to see him get a little bit more usage rating, but we know he got drafted to a really good collection of ball players, and now we're seeing him in an opportunity where he gets to get the basketball in his hands a little bit more, and we see how talented and how skilled he is. He had a big time game in their most recent win over the Phoenix Suns, pouring in 20 points, and I just like his ability. Just like Franz Wagner, I think he has a very good ability of getting downhill and finishing around the rim. So the Orlando Magic, they have something special going, and this adversity is so great for a young team, because I think this instills so much confidence, because now when you get Paolo Banchero back and you get Wendell Carter back, and let's just say for an example, there's a point in time where Paolo Banchero, where he isn't having the best game, where his shot isn't falling, where he gets into foul trouble, and the same thing with Wendell Carter Jr. They play some pivotal basketball without these two guys. Now when this happens in the game, when it happens later in the season, when the games count more, and then when it counts in the playoffs, when it's win or go home, they're going to be better equipped for a lot more NBA, for a lot of more primetime NBA situations. So this injury was a terrible thing for the Orlando Magic, but a great thing at the same time, because we're seeing this team get battle tested each and every night, and they're winning most of these battles. So that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. The Orlando Magic, they are really getting after it. They're playing some inspiring basketball. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.